Hello and welcome to Wineskins, a program featuring reflections on the lives of the saints and the sacred scriptures, along with a variety of topics and issues from a Catholic perspective. I'm your host, Father Jim Korda. Our show is sponsored by the Annual Bishop's Appeal, the Catholic Communication Campaign, and St. Paul's Catholic Books and Gifts, a division of the Society of St. Paul. On our show today, I will interview Tom Sauline on Reformation Sunday. We will also hear more about the life of Saints Simon and Jude and the readings for this 30th Sunday in Ordinary Time. That and more on Wineskins. To tell us more about the Catholic Council of Nurses is Mary Ellen Burke. With me now is Mary Ellen Burke, who is the president of the Youngstown Council of Catholic Nurses. Welcome to Wineskins.
Thank you, Father Korda. I'm happy to be here.
You know, as I mentioned before the taping, Mary Ellen, we've never really had anyone from the Catholic Nurse Association with us on Wineskins, and this is an opportune time, especially with the pandemic that we find ourselves in, to not only celebrate those who are in the healthcare field, but also to learn more about the association. So tell us a little bit about your association with the nurses and what exactly is the association all about?
I joined the local organization about 6 years ago. I had been out of nursing for a while, but I moved back to town, and classmates from nursing said, why don't you come? You'll see some other people you know from nursing. So I did, and it's really the thing that impressed me most about this group was how they cared about one another. As I went to the meetings, and saw how they would be picking up some of the older nurses who aren't able to get out and around anymore, sometimes from even assisted living places, and bring them to the luncheon meetings so they can join with their old comrades and be together. That act of charity impressed me.
Sure.
It did.
And I think that is kind of like a hallmark of, I think, who we are as Catholics. You know, there's this sense of community and communion with one another, especially within the faith. And what better place to celebrate it when you gather together a career or a vocation such as the nursing field. Tell us a little bit briefly about your nursing background and what you really enjoyed about nursing.
Well, I went to school at St. Elizabeth Hospital School of Nursing. I graduated in 1967. I spent 2 years there working in the labor and delivery department. Then I moved to Boston, where I lived for a few years, and I worked in labor and delivery there for a while at a hospital, and then I moved into surgery. I was there 4 years. After my dad passed away, I decided to move a little closer to home, so I went to Cincinnati, circling around, you see. And came back to surgery there at Good Samaritan Hospital. And then I just did move home, and I was back home at St. Elizabeth Hospital in surgery for about 7 years when I decided to make a career change. And I liked both those aspects of nursing. I liked the labor and delivery because it was one-on-one. There was a satisfaction in helping women through the labor and the joy and sometimes the sorrows, but it was very satisfying. And I enjoyed the surgery. It was challenging. It was interesting. And moving to a couple of different places gave me kind of a broad view of things are not always done only one way. So I was about 14 years in active nursing.
Let's talk about the present situation with the pandemic that we find ourselves in. We know that those who are on the front line, the nurses and the doctors and those who work in the healthcare field, really have a difficult job to do. What is difficult about the job that they do, given the situation, but what is most wonderful about the job that they do?
Well, I'm not speaking from experience here because nothing in my experience was anything like this. But I have such an admiration for people who go to work every day. They're working long hours in difficult situations. If you just think about, it's not always comfortable to wear a mask. Now, I wore a mask for years in surgery, but it was up and down. It was okay. And it was part of the job. But to go to work every day and know you're going to be outfitted in all this equipment and supply and dealing with people who are very ill, and worrying about, are you going to take it home? I've read of people who work in the healthcare field who don't go home. They stay somewhere else because they have someone vulnerable at home. I would imagine that the satisfaction comes with feeling like you're really doing a huge job, really big job, helping the people anywhere in the world. Anybody who's doing any kind of healthcare in the world, they're right there, hands-on, helping someone. I just have so much admiration, and I guess I can pray for them that God sustains them.
Mary Ellen Burke, thank you so much as president of the Nurse Association for being with us on Wineskins. Thank you for the wonderful job that you do, but also in your name, the nurses and those on the front line who are working in the fields and who keep us safe. We pray for their safety and for their families as well. Thank you.
Thank you for having us and for acknowledging the job that all nurses do.
For Wineskins, I'm Father Jim Korda. The Feast of St. Simon and Jude is celebrated on Wednesday. To tell us more about these holy apostles is Barb Zorn. She is from St. Columba Cathedral in Youngstown.
According to early accounts, the two apostles, St. Simon and St. Jude, were martyred in Persia. Between the 6th and 8th centuries, there was a church dedicated to St. Simon on the shore of the Black Sea. According to tradition in the West, Simon, called the Zealot, preached the gospel in Egypt and later joined St. Jude and went with him to Persia. Jude, also known as Thaddeus, is the author of a letter in which he warns the Christian converts against false teaching and immorality. Jude was probably crucified in Persia after having evangelized Egypt and Mauritania. He is popularly venerated as the patron of impossible causes. The liturgical prayers for this feast are rather general in tone, since we do not have many biographical details for these two apostles. However, two themes do emerge: the missionary apostolate and the promise of Jesus of the indwelling of the Trinity in the souls of the just. In the opening prayer of the Mass, we say, "Father, you revealed yourself to us through the preaching of your apostles, Simon and Jude. By their prayers, give your church continued growth and increase the number of those who believe in you." A theme stated in the communion antiphon, which is the response given by Jesus to the question posed by Jude. Do you intend to show yourself to us and not to the world? If anyone loves me, he will hold to my words, and my Father will love him, and we will come to him and make our home with him. This response by Jesus affirms one of the most consoling truths taught by Christ, namely that the Trinity dwells in the souls of the just. In the other two prayers of the liturgy, we ask that our faith may be revived and that God will keep us in his loving care. The relevance of this feast for us hinges primarily on St. Jude Thaddeus, patron of impossible causes. The power of his intercession has been acknowledged by countless persons who are devoted to him. Moreover, the significance of these two apostles can be gleaned from the first reading for the Mass. You are strangers and aliens no longer. No, you are fellow citizens of the saints and members of the household of God. For Wineskins, I'm Barb Zorn.
Joining me is Dr. Tom Sauline, who is a co-convener of the Lutheran Catholic Covenant Commission with the Diocese of Youngstown and the Evangelical Lutheran Church of America. Tom, welcome to Wineskins.
Well, thanks, Jim. I'm glad to be here.
You know, we have kind of been together on this Covenant Commission for a couple years, you and I, but you've been part of it really from the beginning. Mm-hmm. And this year marks the 20th anniversary of that Covenant Commission. What is so significant, not necessarily about 20 years, but what is so significant about Lutherans and Catholics coming together to talk?
I think it promotes good spiritual relationships. I think that Lutherans and Catholics in friendship with one another helps Lutherans be better disciples of Christ and helps Catholics be better disciples of Christ.
You know, what's interesting is you were talking, oftentimes when we get together with other people of different faiths, we look at what divides us. Mm-hmm. But what's important, I think, and what I believe the Commission has done is look at what unites us. Why is it important to do the latter and not always the former?
Well, Jesus told his disciples at the Last Supper in John's Gospel that he was praying that they may be one, so it's Jesus' wish that Christians be united in baptism with Christ and with one another and reach out to those in need. Pope Francis said that we're united, Lutherans and Catholics are united, when we reach out to care for the poor, the sick, the hungry. That's the reason why it's important to work for Christian unity, which the Covenant Commission is trying to do. You know, the Covenant Charters, the ELCA, NEOS ELCA, Northeastern Ohio Synod of the Evangelical Lutheran Church in America, and the Roman Catholic Diocese of Youngstown work together to pray, study, and act for Christian unity.
Let's kind of go back 20 years, and what was significant about that moment, and who really participated in bringing that about?
Well, I've heard stories about after 1999, the Joint Declaration on the Doctrine of Justification was signed by the Vatican and signed by the Lutheran World Federation, and it put to rest 500 years of anathemas between the Lutherans and the Catholics. And more importantly, it shared a common appreciation for the understanding of the doctrine of justification. And that we're all saved by the grace of Christ. That motivates us to do good works for one another. The Lutherans and Catholics came to that agreement, which was a significant issue during the Reformation. So they put that to rest. And thereafter, I'm told by Joe Whitmer, who's our diocesan ecumenical officer, who I think was there at the dinner. There was a dinner with Bishop Tobin, who was our ordinary at the time, and Bishop Marcus Miller, who was the bishop of the ELCA at the time, 1999, 2000. There was a school established. There was Old St. Pat's School on the south side that then converted to a Lutheran Catholic school. And so Tobin and Miller Bishop Tobin and Bishop Miller had been in conversation about that. So they're at dinner with Y.T. Chu, who was on the ELCA commission. And he said, why don't we have a covenant? We do that. And Tobin and Miller agree. And Bishop Tobin tells Joe, get it going. And next thing I know, I'm called by Joe to help work on drafting the covenant. And then the covenant is drafted, and in October of 2000, Bishop Tobin and Bishop Miller in the cathedral signed this covenant. The covenant also stipulates there be a commission. And so they recruited folks to help them implement the covenant. And it was quite a large group back then. I came on board to the Covenant Commission, maybe within 2 or 3 years after that. And then maybe within 2 or 3 years after that, I became a co-convener. That's the story as I know it about how the birth of the covenant and the Covenant Commission.
Well, we know that Covenant Commission is 20 years old now, so it's kind of been through its growing stages and into its teen years and its adolescent years, and it's really kind of burgeoning now, looking towards adulthood. And so as we look ahead at the commission, what are some of the things that you would like to see happen with that covenant between the Lutherans and the Catholics? What is significant about that you would like to lift up?
I appreciate your analogy of the stages of life. I was thinking about where I see the Covenant Commission and the covenant relative to that stage of life image. And I think we're married. And I think we're happily married. But, we're still learning about one another. We have high hopes. And one of the high hopes is that the Commission raises the consciousness of Catholics and Lutherans about how essential it is as a Christian disciple to be working towards Christian unity. I once heard Brother Grow, he was the head of the Bishop's Committee on Ecumenism and Interfaith Relationships back in the day, and he said that you can't be a Christian if you're not promoting Christian unity. It's essential to following Jesus. So I would like the Commission to be able to raise that consciousness, make it a priority. I also like to see the work of the Commission helps facilitate those spiritual relationships I was telling you about. More and more Lutheran Catholic marriages, people becoming aware that, that's a good way to be a Christian, a good way to live out your baptism. For more backyard ecumenism, Mark Williams tells me the story of his wife, Janine, who lived next door to Lutherans that lived next door to Italian Catholics. And the Italian Catholic woman, she was a baker. The Lutheran woman was a baker. And so she would bake the first communion cakes, the Catholic neighbors next door. And then the Catholic neighbor would help the Lutheran family when they were doing a yard sale for the Lutheran World Federation collection. So I'm hoping that the Lutheran Catholic Covenant Commission has an impact to that degree that facilitates those kinds of easy exchanges between Lutheran and Catholic friends, between Christians who are living out their baptismal vocation together.
We know we celebrate Reformation Day today. What is so significant about that, and why should we do that?
Days past, there was a lot of vilification of Lutherans and Catholics and Lutherans. So it's significant that on Reformation Day that we honor Martin Luther's contribution to Christian spirituality, that we recognize the Christian unity that we are called to as baptized Christians, and that we raise up any efforts like the Commission and the Covenant to work towards Christian unity.
Let's say that there's someone who's listening that would like more information on how they can dialogue with one another or get more information on why it's important to have this Christian ecumenical spirit and attitude.
Mm-hmm.
Can they do that somewhere?
Well, they can go to the Lutheran Catholic Covenant website, www.lccovenant.org. Check out the website for more information, or talk to your local pastor, and raise the question, what is our congregation doing to work for Christian unity? There's this covenant, and what are we doing about that? So those are two suggestions I have for folks. And pray. And pray for Christian unity. Pray for the unity of the Christians in your neighborhood. Pray for the unity of the Christians in your family. Pray for the health of ecumenical marriages of people you know.
Tom Sauline, thank you so much for being with us today and
You're
for
welcome,
your
Jim.
work as a co-convener. It's been a pleasure to be on the commission with you, and we look forward to more wonderful things happening between Lutherans, Catholics, and also people of faith.
Thanks, Jim.
For Wineskins, I'm Father Jim Korda. To receive more information and to listen to Wineskins, visit the website of the Catholic Diocese of Youngstown at www.doi.org. Stay with us. We'll be back in a moment.
I am Marino.
Je suis Marino.
I am Marino.
I believe that we are all connected to each other, and that is the gift of compassion that unites us and makes us one. It doesn't matter what language, culture, or tradition we come from. We can share compassion wherever we are.
Marino, an American Catholic organization of priests and brothers, has been reaching out to those in need for nearly 100 years in 26 countries throughout the world. Marino dedicates 86 cents of every dollar donated to their programs, and with your help, they can do more. Missioners, workers, volunteers, supporters, we are all Marino.
I am Marino.
Yo soy Marino.
I'm Father Mike, and I am Marino.
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 33 million Americans have descended into poverty. And as their futures fall, so does our nation's. By the time we can walk, each of us yearns for the joy that comes from being able to do for ourselves. Church World Service believes that being self-reliant is a joy everyone should share. So around the block or around the world, share the joy. Church World Service.
Our song today is by Michael Crawford. It is from his CD entitled On Eagle's Wings.
But now I see.
And now I'll share some scripture reflections for this 30th Sunday in Ordinary Time. Our gospel for today tells of a man who asked Jesus a question, not out of sincerity, but to trip him up. But despite this man's insincerity, we should be grateful to him, for his question prompted Jesus to put together two verses from the Old Testament, one from Deuteronomy, the other from Leviticus, and establish them forever as the law of love. Let's examine this law of love, but from the reverse. Let's look at the law from back to front. First, you shall love yourself. Now that may sound a little strange for Jesus to say, but if we complete his sentence, filling in what he implied, then it will read like this: You shall love your neighbor as you love yourself. Please remember, however, this is not an invitation to pride and arrogance. One of the worst things that could happen is for us to develop an exaggerated opinion of our own importance. The Bible is quite plain about the sin of pride. But in my experience, for every one person who suffers from too high of an opinion of themselves, there are 10 people who suffer from a low opinion of themselves. Many people, it seems to me, have either forgotten or never learned who they are. Sometime in the near future, open your Bible to the book of Genesis, chapter 1, verse 27, and there you will read, God created man in his image. In the divine image he created them. Male and female he created them. That was written not just for Adam and Eve, that was written for you and me. We are men and women made in the image of God. Get in your mind a true picture of who you are. You're not a born loser. You're an offspring of God. The second thing is to love your neighbor as yourself. It is my contention that if we would break away and turn our attention from self to others, we might be surprised at the results. Sometimes I think that many of our so-called personal problems are nothing more than a preoccupation with self. If we really get concerned with the needs of our neighbors, it would be that many of our own needs would just be forgotten. Of course, if we decide to do that, we have to also decide who our neighbor is. Remember Jesus' story of the Good Samaritan. He helped a man that had been beaten and robbed. Who that man was, we really don't know. Jesus never said. He may have been a Jew or a Gentile. He may have been clean or dirty. He may have been white or black or brown. All of that doesn't matter. The point is that he needed help, and that is who our neighbor is. The third and most important part of the law is this: You shall love the Lord your God with your whole heart, your whole soul, and your whole mind. In other words, we are commanded to make a commitment of our total personality to God. I think that we have to all be honest enough to admit that we have never done this completely and totally, and yet part of the glory of the Christian faith is that we can never fully live up to it. Christ is always out there ahead of us, calling us to greater heights. I remember a verse from the book of James that says, Every worthwhile gift, every genuine benefit comes from above, descending from the Father. Now, if God cares that much about you and me, then our life will not be complete until we learn to love God above all else. And through the saving grace of Jesus Christ, we have the rest of time and eternity to learn that great law of love. For Wineskins, I'm Father Jim Korda. In Matthew 25, Jesus shows that his judgment will be based on how we have or have not met our neighbor's need. As long as you did it for the least of my sisters and brothers, you did it for me. Wineskins is made possible by the annual Bishop's Appeal, the Catholic Communication Campaign, and St. Paul's Catholic Books and Gifts. The program is produced by CTNY, the Catholic Telecommunications Network of Youngstown. I'm your host, Father Jim Korda, wishing you a blessed Sunday and a safe week.
What have you done for your marriage today?
I gave my wife a hug this morning. I told her I love her.
I did her hair this morning. I think it looks pretty good.
I cooked my husband's favorite breakfast.
I bought her an orchid.
What have I done for my marriage today? I sent my husband a love email.
I read the newspaper to my wife, and it cracked her up. But she's still laughing.
What have you done for your marriage today? Make a change for the better. Need help? Go to foryourmarriage.org, a message from the Catholic Church.
They say America is the land of opportunity, but for some, life isn't so easy. Right now in America, 1 in 6 children lives below the poverty line. That's nearly 13 million children of all races, all across our country. Where do you draw the line and get involved? You can make a difference in more ways than you think. Go to povertyusa.org today, because 1 in 6 children in poverty is one too many. A message from the Catholic Campaign for Human Development.